After 4 unsuccessful attempts to bringing the Fantastic Four to live action, the bar was set pretty low for this movie, even more so with the fact that the current MCU isn't exactly of the same quality that it used to be. There were some exceptions recently, such as the Thunderbolts, but then we get films like Brave New World. I personally was more apprehensive about the casting more than anything else. Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards was a very jarring choice, especially since he's pretty much everywhere in the film industry and extremely mainstream. Also, I was worried to see another average or below average Marvel film hit theaters. That being said, Fantastic Four: First Steps was actually really good. Fantastic even.
Say that again?
This video essay will discuss why I firmly believe that this is a very solid entry into the MCU. Kicking things off, let's discuss the story. The story of the Fantastic Four takes place 4 years after the family had gained their powers and had become the established heroes of this alternate world. Reed Richards and Sue Storm are having a baby, leading to the Silver Surfer of this universe marking their world for death. Inside of Sue Storm, Franklin Richards wields the power cosmic, the cure to the insatiable hunger of Galactus. After offering to spare their world of his consumption in exchange for the baby, the team refuses and wages war with the tyrant and do their best to save their world and the lives that inhabit it. The character dynamics in this film are fantastic, starting off with Reed Richards and Sue Storm. Pedro Pascal is surprisingly great as Reed Richards. Is he the character from the comic books? In terms of his intelligence, absolutely, but no. He still does retain many of the important elements that stay true to the core of who the character is. He's much more of an overthinking version of the character who still has an endearing quality to him, as well as a nurturing side with him being a father. Vanessa Kirby is great as Sue in the film. Her chemistry with Pascal shines through many moments of the film, and we see her character in a position that we hadn't seen her in before. She's a mother, and a very protective mother, especially when the evils of this film are trying to take that away from her. There were many great moments between her and Reed, but one of my favorite moments being a moment where they're discussing solutions on how to save the world from Galactus. They had an emotional moment where Sue calls out Reed on his solutions and the fact that he had probably thought about trading in the baby for the world's survival, and Reed Richards, being the blunt scientist that he is, says that he discusses all possibilities but he wouldn't do it. Great character moments, and I cannot wait to see more of them in the future of the MCU. Johnny Storm and the Thing. I loved Johnny throughout the film. Many might be put off by the fact that he's not as much of a womanizer as he is in the comic books, but he's in scenarios where it's not really needed and probably would have shifted focus unnecessarily from the plot. His scenes were far more relevant than I expected throughout the film and play a pivotal role in the story, especially in displaying his intelligence and learning more about the Silver Surfer. The only member of the team who felt like he got the short end of the stick in the film and was more in the background and wasn't given much of a character arc was the Thing, which I personally think is fine since we already had 2 renditions of the character that displayed his insecurities in a major regard and were a part of his major character arcs in both interpretations. This is something that they'll probably touch on more in the future in the MCU, and it's fine to focus on other characters besides Ben Grimm as a main focal point. But he's a very sweet character with a heart of gold and is more like the cool uncle of the group. The music is outstanding. Michael Giacchino makes a memorable and excellent score for the team and is amongst some of the best within the MCU. It matches with the future retro style of the world and feels very, well, fantastic.
He said it! He said it!
The world is incredible to look at. The thing that stood out most to me in the film was the retro-futuristic world of the Fantastic Four. It feels like an entirely different and unique world that I still wanted to explore more of even after the film had already ended. We've gotten so used to seeing nanotechnology and holograms, vibranium in the main continuity that it feels refreshing to see a world that takes place in kind of an alternate 70s environment. The 70s, if it had some futuristic technology, from a design standpoint, this is one of the more unique Marvel films. The villains in this movie were also a major highlight. Silver Surfer was amazing in the film and sports the best action sequence in the film. I know the internet blew up about the fact that it would be a lady, but it very much did work, and it worked for what Johnny Storm was doing in the story as well, with him being attracted to ladies as well. And with her sporting the greatest action sequence in the film, it was just everything that I wanted. It was a great chase with her and their spacecraft that utilized black holes, lasers, and literal surfing on lava, and moments that felt like something out of Interstellar. The visuals were incredible. The CGI with these characters' abilities and with her specifically were incredible. Galactus was terrifying in this movie, especially since he's not a cloud anymore. They finally do the character justice. He's huge. He has a presence and is incredibly powerful, and he's willing to stop at nothing to get what he wanted, and the Fantastic Four could do nothing to stop him. I also like the fact that they hadn't underpowered the character. The Fantastic Four in the film technically did not beat Galactus. All they did was sent him away. And even doing that pretty much almost cost them one of their family members. I mean, Sue Storm, she died just trying to push him through a portal. And he was shrugging off every other attack that they were throwing at him. He almost killed Reed by stretching him out like a Laffy Taffy, which in my opinion was an intense sequence. But also something that Galactus brought to the film as well was something that a lot of Marvel films undercut a lot of with their humor, and that is there was a sense of dread to the film.
Are we safe?
I don't know.
With this taking place in an alternate Earth that is separate from our main continuity, I really thought that this world was actually going to go away, and with that ending to the Thunderbolts with them in the rocket ship, I literally thought that they would lose in this movie. Needless to say, Galactus was one of the biggest standouts to me in the film and is displayed incredibly and in the best way possible I think they could have done. Now let's discuss some of the negatives of the film. I think that the third act was extremely weak. With all the great setup that they had, I think that Reed Richards' plan of teleporting the Earth from one end of the universe to the other was incredibly stupid, and from a logical standpoint, with him being the world's smartest man, that just sounds dumb. After having the Silver Surfer come in and blowing up their towers, the whole new plan is to just push Galactus to a teleporter and shift him away from his ship and everything. There's so many plot holes that you could point out there as well. Like earlier in the film, he was able to take their ship with a retractor beam. Why didn't he just do the same thing with Franklin Richards instead of just getting out of the ship completely? To me, it sounded like they needed a reason for the Fantastic Four to win in that regard. And also, I think Mole Man was kind of thrown in a little bit too abruptly, and it feels like a lot of his scenes might have been cut out before, which I think is a solid theory since there are a lot of scenes that I saw missing from this movie. And with him having a quick fix of putting everybody underground, just felt very convenient for the sake of plot. Baby in this movie, the CGI is terrible. It reminds me of Twilight Baby. You have all these great CG moments, but then the one thing that's supposed to be normal, a baby, is the thing that is the creepiest thing in the entire movie. And also I feel like the runtime might have been just a tad bit too short, as some things were cut out that I think were probably necessary moments that would have led to the finale making more sense. However, in conclusion, Fantastic Four: First Steps is the most surprising Marvel film I've seen in a while, and I'm glad to see so many people liking the film as well. We never thought that we would ever get a great interpretation for the Fantastic Four. Our standards were lowered so much after Fant4stic that we start looking back on the old films like, you know what, maybe those were not entirely bad. Is it the greatest Fantastic Four movie that it could have been? I don't think so. The greatest Fantastic Four movie to me will always be The Incredibles, but in terms of what Marvel is doing with their Fantastic Four, I think they pretty much nailed it with this version. And it does make me excited to see what the future is of the MCU, especially with that post-credit scene of Doctor Doom. Where is Marvel going in the future, and can they continue the same recipe that they've had with good stories like Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four in the future?